On November 7, 1989, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH192 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. The flight was en route to Kathmandu with 167 passengers and 11 crew members on board. The pilot of the plane was 47-year-old Rajiv Chandra, an experienced pilot with 15,000 hours of flying time, including more than 2,000 hours in the Himalayas. The co-pilot was 36-year-old Li Wei, a talented pilot who switched to civil aviation after serving in the Malaysian Air Force for 8 years. That day, one of the strongest storms in a decade broke out over the Himalayas. Meteorologists recorded wind gusts of up to 120 kilometers per hour and a sharp drop in barometric pressure. The temperature at an altitude of 7,000 meters is as high as minus 58 degrees Celsius. Despite the adverse weather conditions, Flight MH192 was allowed to fly as the weather forecast predicted. Better weather by the time it reached the Himalayas. The last radio communication with the aircraft occurred at 1843 local time. Captain Chandra reported turbulence and requested permission to change altitude. Controller, this is MH192. We are entering severe turbulence. We request clearance to descend to 7,600. The call was cut off midway. The plane disappeared from the radar, just as it disappeared into the air between the mountains. A search operation was immediately launched, but was complicated by adverse weather conditions. 8 helicopters and 12 ground teams searched the suspected crash area for 3 weeks. The search yielded no results. The plane appeared to have sunk in one of the most inaccessible areas of the Himalayas, where peaks rise to more than 27,000 feet. A month later, Nepalese authorities officially ended the search operation and declared all passengers and crew dead. The 167 passengers included tourists from 14 countries, a group of Buddhist monks on their annual pilgrimage, and renowned Himalayan mountaineer Johann Steiner and his 5-man team. For the families of the missing, painful years of uncertainty and false hope had begun. For 34 years, the mystery of Flight MH192 remained unsolved until June 2023, when an international mountaineering expedition led by Alex Mackenzie set out to storm the eastern slopes of Kangchenjunga, the world's 3rd highest peak. The team consisted of 5 people. Mackenzie himself, a 46-year-old Scotsman with 20 years of Himalayan climbing experience, Anna Sokolova, a 38-year-old Kazakh mountaineer who has conquered all 8,000 climbs in the world. James Hope, an Australian doctor and mountaineer. Minho Park is a Korean photographer and expert in high-altitude photography. And Churing Sherpa, a 3rd-generation Nepalese hereditary guide. The expedition initially planned to test a new route up the eastern slope of Kangchenjunga, a route considered nearly impassable due to steep ice walls and frequent avalanches. Prior to this, 6 attempts to pave the way in this field had all failed. Over the years, for climbers have died trying to conquer the route. Local residents call this mountain Korlo Lamo, which means Wheel of the Goddess of Death in Tibetan. According to an ancient legend, the mountain god hid here the gate to the other world, where the souls of the dead go. At an altitude of approximately 5,800 meters, the climbers encountered an unexplained phenomenon. The electronic compass began giving strange readings, as if something in the mountain was distorting the magnetic field. Even though the sky was absolutely clear, the GPS navigator would periodically lose the signal. The team attributed this to features in the rocks, possibly high levels of iron or other metals. At dawn on the 3rd day of the climb, as the group set up camp on a narrow ledge at 21,000 feet, Anna was the first to notice the bird's unusual behavior. A large flock of Himalayan vultures circled in the thermals above the steep slopes half a kilometer from the camp, a rare sight in these parts. Among them, 2 individuals stood out because they were much larger than the others, Himalayan eagles with wingspans of up to 3 meters. What was unusual was not only the presence of the raptors at such high altitudes, but Also the strange way they flew. The eagles seemed to be drawing the same pattern in the sky, flying back to a certain point on the hillside again and again, as if to attract the attention of climbers. Seeing these birds, Chelan Sherpa turned pale and flatly refused to continue climbing according to the planned route. He initially answered questions from concerned climbers evasively, but then told a local legend. The mountain, his grandfather said, was home to the Ramtroma, a mountain protector in the form of a giant bird who watched over the place where the worlds of the living and the dead intersected. When the Ramtroma begin circling a place, it means they are protecting souls trapped between worlds. Although Mackenzie was skeptical, he was curious about the eagle's strange behavior. This behavior is typical of birds of prey when they spot large prey. The team decided to change course and see what had caught the eagle's attention. At worst, they would lose only a few hours. The climbers changed their route and came to a steep, icy slope that ended in a cliff. As they approached where the eagles were circling, the birds began to behave more erratically. They descended almost to the height of people's heads, and then rose up again as if pointing the way. Suddenly, an eagle swooped down and dived directly into the snow about 30 meters away from the team. As the climbers approached, the bird took off, leaving a deep hole in the snow. Park Minho took out his ice pick and started clearing the snow. At a depth of about 1 meter, the blade hit something hard, making a metallic sound. After another 15 minutes of digging, a white cladding with blue and red stripes appeared in front of them, the distinctive colors of Malaysia Airlines. The climbers couldn't believe their eyes. In front of them was the wreckage of a passenger plane at an altitude of more than 6,000 meters, a place that was previously considered difficult to reach even for experienced climbers. The first thought was to call for help immediately, but the satellite connection was suddenly disconnected. All devices show that the battery is fully charged, but the signal is not coming through. The team decided to expand the excavation to get an idea of the scale of the find. The team worked over the next 4 hours to clear the snow around the casing fragments that were found. At night, they dug out a section of the fuselage with 4 windows and the words MH192 engraved on the side. This was the same Malaysian airliner that disappeared 34 years ago. Now it was clear why he had not been found. He had crash-landed in a location that was considered completely inaccessible. No helicopter could hover at this altitude due to the thin air, and ground troops would never be able to reach the slope because it did not lead to any known peak. The next morning, after a scorching night near the ruins, the climbers continued to clean up. By noon, they discovered a crack in the fuselage wide enough for a person to squeeze into the plane. Alex Mackenzie and Anna Sokolova, the most experienced of the group, decided to sneak in while the others continued to clear the snow outside. Inside the plane, time seemed to stand still. Oxygen masks hung from the ceiling and half-covered cups sat on the tables. In the hallway lay an open copy of Time magazine, its cover showing a photo from the days before the fall of the Berlin Wall. The climbers moved very carefully, fearing to upset the delicate balance between fragments. In the first row of passengers, they found a bag containing climbing gear. Inside was an ice axe engraved with JS, the initials of Johann Steiner, the famous mountaineer aboard. Nearby lay his passport and a leather-bound notebook, both in remarkably good condition. When Mackenzie opened the notebook, what he saw sent chills down his spine. This is a diary written by Steiner after the disaster. The last record is dated December 16, 1989, more than a month after the plane disappeared. John Steiner's diary reveals a horrific story of survival. Of the 178 people on board, only 47 survived the first night. Most of the people on board died on impact when the plane plunged into a mountainside during a snowstorm. Captain Chandra was one of the survivors and took over command. He organized a makeshift shelter among the wreckage, distributed found food supplies, and instituted a strict water conservation regime. Steiner wrote that the plane crashed into the mountain due to a strange magnetic anomaly. All devices failed simultaneously. The pilot was essentially flying blind. Minutes before the collision, the captain saw a strange glow on the mountainside, as if the mountain itself was glowing from within. He tried to turn away, but it was too late. Many more entries tell stories of the struggle to survive in extreme conditions. The temperature dropped to -45 degrees Celsius at night. On the 5th day after the disaster, survivors noticed strange bird behavior. Huge eagles began circling over the crash site. On the 7th day, something incredible happened. An eagle dropped a goat into the shelter. The animal was dead, but still warm. At first, the survivors thought it was an accident, but the next day, the bird returned with another carcass. It seems that the eagle feeds humans intentionally. Captain Chandra claimed that in 20 years of flying over the Himalayas, he had never heard of anything like it. Over the next 2 weeks, the eagle continued to bring food to the survivors. This saved them from inevitable death by starvation. However, by the end of November, the situation had deteriorated dramatically. Heavy snow completely covered the wreckage of the plane, turning it into an icy grave. Oxygen supplies were inadequate, and many survivors suffered severe altitude sickness. A record from December 4th said 3 more people had died that day. Only 18 people were left. Captain Chandra says we need to go down else everyone will die. He suggested digging a tunnel in the snow and getting out. Eagles still circle over planes every day. Steiner sometimes felt that. They were trying to tell people something. The last entry in the diary was brief and astonishing. They opened a tunnel. We got out. The captain said we need to go down the southeast slope. For some reason, the eagle flew away. At night I saw a strange light coming from the rock again. It seemed to beat like a living heart. The local monks in our group said it was a light of transition, the path to another dimension. I don't know whether to believe them, but I have no other explanation. If anyone finds his diary, let them know we fought to the end and did not give up. The climbers were shocked. It turned out that some passengers survived the accident and tried to get down the mountain. But what happened to them later? Why did anyone find them? What role do the eagles play in all this? Continuing the investigation of the aircraft, another magazine was found in the cockpit, the flight magazine. Captain Chunder kept a record of what happened, with all its strangeness, right up to the end. On November 28th, he wrote that the compass was still mad. The arrow keeps spinning, sometimes counterclockwise. All electronic equipment capable of starting from the emergency generators was rendered useless. The altimeter went negative, showing -2,000 meters, although they were clearly at an altitude of at least 6,000. The thermometer jumped from +35 to -60 without any logic. During the night, the radio operator tried to activate the emergency transmitter and swore. He heard voices in an unknown language in his headphones. This place seems to distort reality. In one of his last messages, the captain described a strange phenomenon he had observed with the surviving monks. The light from last night appeared again on the slope. The monks performed certain rituals and chanted mantras. They say it is a gate between worlds, and whoever passes through it will be given a new life in another dimension. As a scientist, the captain did not believe in such things, but after what he'd been through, he was ready to consider any possibility. If they couldn't get down, it might be worth the risk to check out what was behind that light. That evening, climbers discovered something even more shocking at the tail of the plane. The emergency exit had been opened from the inside, and dozens of bird feathers were lying on the floor around it. Some of them belonged to Himalayan eagles. This was confirmed by Park Min-ho, who is passionate about ornithology. The feathers are arranged in strange patterns, like spirals. A small metal object is placed in the center of the spiral. It turned out to be an ancient Tibetan amulet with an image of a winged creature on it. Chilin later said that this was a symbol of the Ramtroma, a protective spirit in the form of a giant bird. As climbers continued to clean up the outside, they found traces leading from the plane to the slope, remnants of the tunnel in the snow that Steiner had written about. The tunnel led to the edge of a cliff and ended abruptly. Furthermore, the road is blocked by a steep ice wall more than 500 meters high, making it impossible to descend without special equipment. It is impossible to understand what happened to the survivors. If you continue along this path, you will definitely fall off the cliff and die. But their bodies have to be underneath, yet there was no trace of it. At night, as the crew returned to the aircraft and took shelter inside the fuselage for the night, something puzzling happened. James Hope's satellite phone, which had been off all day, suddenly started ringing again and began making strange noises. This is no ordinary connection, but more like a series of short and long beeps, like Morse code. Hope recorded the entire process, and when the group returned to base camp, one of the assistants, a former radio operator, deciphered it. The message read, "We are alive, but not here." At night, climbers observed the same lights described by Captain Chandra and John Steiner. It appeared on a rock about 300 meters from the plane, a pulsating blue light, similar to the northern lights but concentrated in a single point. The light moves in a spiral, twisting towards the center. The strangest thing was that when the flashlight was shown on him, the light bent, as if the space around that point was deformed. The climbers saw the eagle for the last time on the morning of the last day, as they prepared to descend from the crash site and report their discovery to authorities. The birds literally surrounded them, forming a living circle in the air. One of them had something in his claws. The eagle swooped down and dropped the object at the feet of Alex Mackenzie. It was a tattered leather wallet. Inside was Captain Rajiv Chandra's identity card and a photo of his family. On the back of the photo is his handwritten inscription, "Through the light. New life. Don't look for us here." The note is dated December 17th, 1989, the day after Steiner last wrote in his diary. 3 days later, the climbers descended to base camp and contacted Nepali authorities. Within a month, rescue workers, researchers, and Malaysia Airlines representatives took part in a massive expedition to the crash site. They confirmed all of Mackenzie's team's findings, but were unable to make further progress in solving the mystery of the missing survivors. During the official expedition, strange things kept happening. All electronic equipment near the aircraft malfunctioned. Compasses show arbitrary directions. The position determined by a GPS navigator may be inaccurate by several kilometers. Meteorologists recorded unusually high levels of electromagnetic radiation around the crash site, but were unable to explain its source. Geologists have found that rocks beneath the plane contain unusually high concentrations of rare earth metals, including gadolinium and neodymium, known for their strong magnetic properties. However, these anomalies do not explain the described glows or the eagle's strange behavior. A study of the black box found in the wreckage showed that the plane fell into an area of strong electromagnetic anomalies shortly before the crash. All devices failed at the same time, and communications were interrupted. The flight recorder recorded the captain's last words. "What is that light? He's right in front of us. Pull back on the steering wheel. We're about to..." The recording stopped halfway. Local residents of the nearby Kambu village told researchers that in their folklore, Kangchenjunga has long been considered sacred but dangerous. According to legend, there is a gate of the world on the east slope of the mountain, guarded by a giant bird guardian. Those who once discovered this door could travel to another dimension without pain and death. Even more surprising, the village elders claimed that about a month after the plane disappeared, strange people appeared in the surrounding villages, not quite locals, but not completely strangers either. They speak Nepali with a thick accent, have strange appearances, and possess strange knowledge. The men lived in the village for a few weeks and then disappeared, beginning their long journey to the east. As they put it, DNA analysis of feathers found on the plane revealed surprising results. While most of the samples were from Himalayan eagles, some contained genetic markers that did not match any known bird species. The scientists suggest this could be a previously unknown population of raptors that have adapted to life at extreme altitudes. The Most striking discovery was the discovery of Captain Chandra's personal effects. In the pocket of his uniform jacket, they found a neatly folded sheet of paper containing a detailed drawing of the spiral gate and detailed mathematical calculations describing its properties. Physicists who studied the records were shocked. The equations described theoretical models of space-time tunnels or wormholes in the language of modern quantum physics. It wasn't until the 2010s, 20 years after the disaster, that scientists began to actively develop such concepts. The mystery of Flight MH192 remains unsolved. An official investigation concluded that the crash was caused by extreme weather conditions and a natural geomagnetic anomaly that caused a malfunction in the navigation equipment. December 16, 1989, the fate of the survivors who left the plane has not yet been determined. No bodies were found on the hillside or at the base of the cliff, where a tunnel had been dug through the snow. Alex Mackenzie and his team gained international fame following their discovery. They continued to investigate the mystery of Flight MH192, collecting evidence and researching archive files. Mackenzie visited the families of several passengers, including Captain Chandra's widow. She said that a week before her final flight, her husband told her about a strange dream. He dreamed that he was flying through a bright tunnel of light with giant birds with human eyes on either side. At the end of the tunnel, he saw another world, beautiful and peaceful. After waking up, he said, "If anything happens to me, please know that I will not die. I will just move to another place." A year after discovering the crash site, Park Min-ho published a photo book, Flying Over the Abyss, dedicated to the expedition. A photo taken near the plane on the last day accidentally captured something puzzling. Against the backdrop of the blue sky, a huge eagle soars above the wreckage of the plane. When zoomed in, its shadow on the snow can be clearly seen to have a human outline. Scientists continue to investigate magnetic anomalies in the crash area. Every year, the eagle returns to the crashed plane as if protecting it from strangers. Local residents now refer to the eastern slope of Kanchenjunga as the bird's path rather than the wheel of the goddess of death, and claim that sometimes on clear days, strange flickerings can be seen from the top, as if a gate between worlds opens there. In the villages at the foot of Kanchenjunga, people talk about the wanderers who appear every few years. They don't talk about their past, but they can predict the weather with incredible accuracy and have an amazing knowledge of mountains. In their hands, they often notice unusual amulets, metal spirals, similar to the amulets that climbers find on airplanes. Alex Mackenzie recently received a strange package with no return address. Inside was a small silver pendant in the shape of an eagle with its wings spread. On the back is a single sentence inscribed, "The way is open to those who believe. Seek us at sunrise." Captain Chandra's widow claims that she has seen her husband in dreams many times over the years. He always says the same thing, "I'm alive, but not here. It's great where we are now. Don't grieve for me." The mystery of Flight MH192 continues to thrill scientists and researchers. What is it? A rare natural phenomenon, a manifestation of quantum physics, or a truly magnetic anomaly of incredible intensity? We may never know the truth. As a local monk said, some of the secrets of the mountain exist not to be revealed, but to remind us of the limitations of human understanding.